Women to Watch is an intimate look into the lives of prominent and influential women leaders from around the world and the challenges they faced on their journey. It's the real story behind her title. Join us every week to hear more stories about women from around the world and in your own communities at womentowatch.net. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of Women to Watch. I'm Sue Rocco. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Joining me in just a moment, my guest this week will be Sylvie Lorente. And Sylvie is the chair professor and dean of research and innovation for the College of Engineering at my alma mater, Villanova University. So I'm thrilled to have her with me. Just a note to be sure to subscribe to the show on our YouTube page at Women to Watch Media. That's W2W Media on YouTube. And for all things show related, you can find more information at our website at womentowatch.net. So now I'm very excited and honored to welcome to the show Sylvie Lorente.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And good afternoon. Happy to be here with you.
Thank you. I appreciate so much you're joining me. I know I can't imagine how busy your typical day is. And we'll learn a little bit more about that in the show. But I'd love to start at the very beginning of your life story and share with the viewers that you were actually born and grew up in the south of France. Mm-hmm. Which is a beautiful, beautiful place. And I think it's funny, you shared with me in our introductory call that as a young girl, you really wanted to get out of there. There wasn't enough going on. Most people run to the south of France for vacation because it's such a beautiful place. But just describe for us the community there that you grew up in. What was that like?
Okay, so exactly, just like you said, I grew up in south of France and more precisely on the Mediterranean side, close to the border with Spain. And you probably know that Salvador Dali said about my city, Perpignan, that it was the center of the world. So maybe it was for him, but definitely not for me. And just like you said, I couldn't wait to have the opportunity to discover the world and move out in truth. So that makes me a Catalan person, but not from the Spanish side, Barcelona, etc., but from the French side.
Okay. And I know that your mom was a school teacher, mm-hmm. and your dad actually left school to work in the fields and on the farm. And mm-hmm. Tell me, what kind of pressure did you feel as the first to go to college to be successful in academics and in school?
So yes, like you said, my dad has to leave school when he was 12 because his generation in rural France would not continue to study beyond 12 years old, even though he was very gifted in math. So when I grew up in this rural place, being the daughter of a primary school teacher, education was extremely important. And I would say that the family would bet everything on education as a way to move up in the society. I was lucky to be very good at school, so it was just obvious that I would continue to study. I think my parents had no idea of what I would do, but the higher I could go, the more supportive they were. That's all they were wishing for me.
Yeah. So you were very good at math and science mm-hmm. as well as your dad. And I wonder so in school as a young girl, as a student, were there any subjects that were challenging for you?
So I have always loved learning and I still continue. But I was really good at math and physics. I was not good at basketball or volleyball. That it was just not my thing. But one thing I remember I had when I was 9, 10 years old, I had this extraordinary teacher in primary school who's really the one who just would open the world for all of us in the classroom. And at some point, he decided that each of us would entirely make a bedside lamp. So from the bases made of clay to the electrical wiring and everything. And so this was really doing things with your hands. And I completely messed the electrical part. It was just a complete mess. It was for everybody, but not for me. And I was so upset because I was the one supposed to be the top student. And here I am, not capable of assembling those two electrical wires together. So I was so upset that during the morning class recess, when everybody was playing outside, I sneaked into the classroom and I redid everything to make sure that it worked. And that was such a defining episode that 20 years later, when we bought our first house, which was an old house, which needed a lot of repairs and refurbishing, and we were just a young couple with no money for that, so we had to do everything ourselves. So guess who was in charge of all the electrical repairs in the house? That was me. That was my revenge of my past.
Oh my gosh. Is that the teacher that you shared with me, that you had a teacher that really opened your mind and your heart up to science and encouraged you? Was that
yes. He's the one. And when he retired, because he was also an artist and he started painting. And in my office at Villanova, I have his painting of one of our old family house in my tiny village. So yes, he's the one who really he would inspire generations and generations of students, not only about science, but about books and about the importance of going outside and discover new people and new culture, and interact with anybody as much as we can. So yes, he's been really instrumental to me.
That's so nice. I wonder, there's a very stereotypical thought about girls entering the field of STEM. And I wonder what it was like in your community. So you were not the girl that did what they say typically girls do, going, with language and communication and the arts. And you were, very, very good at it and wanted to study science. Was that encouraged among all young women where you grew up, or was that unusual for you? Were you one of a few?
I think that I was unusual, not because of my gender, but just like any kid who is good at school, you tend to be sometimes a little bit marginalized because you're good. And so you're not the cool guy in the classroom. Okay. So there was no gender issue at that time. This is something that I discovered when I entered college. So I left my tiny village to go to the big city, which was 200 kilometers away. And I entered engineering, and we were 7 female students. So that's when you realize that you become clearly, by definition, a minority. Okay.
7 out of how many, Sylvie?
7. So at that time, I was in civil engineering. We were around 70.
70. So 7 out of 70. Wow.
So clearly we were different, and but that was okay because it was truly about studying and learning. And at that time, most of the professors just didn't care about whether you were a female or a male. Yet I have lots of anecdotes of this time. So the thing is that in France, in the beginning, engineering was for male, not because it was decided, but maybe because female didn't feel that they would belong. But to the point that in my college, they had 4 dorms on campus, and one of them was only for female. But the number of female students started to grow up to the point that they could not accommodate all the female students in this female dorm. So and accommodation was done in alphabetic order, and my maiden name starts with an R. So because of that, I didn't have a room in the dorm from female, and I ended up in the middle of the dorm with male. So you imagine, I don't know, maybe 200, 300 rooms in this big building, and we were, I think, less than 10 female, and it was just rooms, and showers were shared, and toilets were shared. So you have to grow up because you live in this environment. Should the same situation happen today to my daughters at the time when they entered college, I would have called immediately the president of the place. Hey, what is going on? This is not acceptable. But these were the early 90s, and it was just normal. And you were so proud and happy to have been admitted in this top school that having to live on campus in such a way, it was okay. You could live with it.
Yeah. Did you experience any bias from the students, from your peers, or a sense of competition, between the two?
Not when student, and it's unfortunate that I have to say that this happens when I entered the professional world, when I joined academia. Yeah. I've been, for my entire career, I have been mostly the only woman around the table. And that's when it started to become difficult.
Wow. And here you are. I want to make a note so the viewers know you're incredibly successful in your field and cited amongst only 2% in the world for the work that you do. And it's highly intellectual. It's funny, I was preparing for this interview and doing my research and reading, and it was so above my head. I found it difficult to come up with an intelligent question about your work. So I thought I would just allow you to, in layman's terms, say what it is that your research centers around, and how can we equate it to our own lives? Where would we see it in our day-to-day?
Okay. And first of all, I would say, Sue, I'm not very good at talking about my research work. I feel that after 5 minutes, I'm putting people to sleep, but I can try. So, right. In fact, yeah. So we were interested in discovering how flow systems can be improved. So that means everything and nothing. So I'm going to give you some examples. I'm an engineer, and to me, engineering is the science of usefulness. So I like to do fundamental work. I like to work with theories, but I always keep in mind concrete applications of my work. So this idea that things are flowing from one point to another one, and that if we make this flow path more easier, the entire system will perform better, is the line of my research. Now, what do we do with this? For example, we are trying to help the cooling of the batteries in the electrical vehicles. So electrical vehicles are the hot topic right now. The batteries, when they charge and discharge, they heat. And if we do not control this heat, then they can set up on fire. So you need to come up with some cooling solutions. And the idea that the heat is a flow system helps us understand and design how to extract this heat in an efficient way. So that's one example. Yeah. Another example with those ideas, this idea of configurations of flow, a very concrete example is the circulation of the blood in our body. And we are developing models trying to predict how the blood is flowing through the liver, so that if we are capable of understanding exactly what is happening, how the pressure is changing and how the pressure can change depending on the disease of the liver, then maybe we will be capable of helping the surgeons in the operation room to help them improve the efficiency of the entire surgery.
Wow.
So one main idea with really various applications in many, many fields.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. I mean, that gives me a much better sense of what you do. When did you determine the niche you were going to go into with your degree? How did you end up studying this particular part of science?
Well, especially since I have a PhD in civil engineering. So I know quite a lot about concrete, which has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now, right?
Exactly.
But
yes.
my PhD thesis was in energy and building. And I was lucky to be funded by a company. So there was this industrial partner who believed that research and development and partnership with academia can really benefit the company, and they would sponsor PhD thesis. So I started to work with them in trying to understand how we could improve construction materials, make them more efficient from a heat transfer point of view, more insulating, if you will. And that was the beginning in this work on the flow of heat going through through those building materials. And then I was at the start of my career, and I was very lucky to meet with this colleague at Duke University with whom I've been collaborating for about 20 years. And he was the one who discovered this idea of flow systems changing their shape in time, and I felt that it was really a very unique way of considering not only engineering problems but also nature-based engineering problems. So that's how it started.
It's so interesting, and obviously, it was of interest to you, and you've stayed with it. Tell me, when did you come to the United States?
So that was exactly 4 years ago. It was my personal midlife crisis, I guess. We have 2 daughters, and they had left home. They are today 25 and 28. So the nest was empty. Mm-hmm. And I felt that I needed a change. Okay. And it was and Villanova created a very nice opportunity for me, and I felt that it was the time to jump, and because I really wanted a change in my life. So a few months later, it was COVID. So yes, that was quite a bit of a change, not only in my life but in the life of the entire rest of the world.
Right.
So that's how we came to the US, and I am still extremely lucky because my husband agreed to the challenge. So now we are both in Philadelphia.
Okay, and your daughters, did they stay in France? Or?
Oh yes, they absolutely had no interest in coming. The oldest one was already working in Paris, and the youngest was a student in Madrid in Spain. So the family was split. So
This is so interesting to me. You've had the opportunity to teach in many places, Hong Kong, South Africa, France, obviously, and in the US. And I wonder if you can describe any differences that you've noticed in the students from all of these various different places. Has anything surprised you about their way of learning or the way that they interact with you?
Yes, you have a point. The main difference is on how they would interact with the professor and the educator, and that is completely related to the culture. It's I would say in Asian cultures, it's more complicated for the students to interact with the professor. They do not question, or they question in way less fashion what the professor is saying, which is, and the opposite would be in the United States, where the education of the student is such that they learn how to question, which I think is very important, because it's not because you are the oldest in the room that what you are saying is true, obviously. So being questioned and challenged by the student makes the class way more interesting for everybody. And so and in between those two extremes, you will find France, where it completely depends on the students, and there is no big tendency, I would say. But I would like to say that I've been extremely lucky, because wherever I had the chance to teach, it has been really a wonderful experience. And being in contact with those young brains really helps your own thinking. And every time you will ask yourself, how can I teach better to make sure that my message is received by the way I hope it's going to be received.
And I would imagine that when they ask a good question, it opens you up to perhaps something that you hadn't thought about before.
Yes. And that's, I'm teaching graduate classes, so there is this interest in research coming from the students. So the way we teach and the way we interact is also for me an opportunity to tell them, hey, how do you view this problem? How can this question can help you develop your own research project?
Tell me, Sylvie, you mentioned a few times that you didn't really face any bias until you came to the United States, and you were working with people in your profession. Tell me how you dealt with those moments where you could sense that there was a bias just because you were female. How did you deal with that?
The bias is something that I felt when I joined academia, and that was way before coming to the US. I mean, I think that France has its good share way more, much more than in the US, I would say. So, in fact, you understand when you are the only woman in the room. And it's really a male's club. You get it immediately. So you understand that if you want to build your career, you will have to work much more than your male colleagues. That's very obvious. And when I was in my 30s, I took this as a baseline. So I said, okay, I want to build my career. I love research. I love my students. That's really my thing. I understand I have to work much more than my colleagues. I will do it. And it is until recently that I thought that it was normal. And so during all those years, There is no affirmative action in France. So the only way, I wanted to be chosen and promoted because of my work, and definitely not because of my gender. I really would have felt insulted to be promoted because I'm a woman. But it's by this, I have 2 daughters, and it is by discussing with them that they opened my eyes quite recently, I have to admit, because they said, but Mom, it's not normal that you have to work twice as much as your colleague to be considered successful. You should be successful based on exactly the same criteria as your colleagues, not because because obviously they saw me working night and day, weekdays, Saturday, holidays, all the time. And that's not normal. We shouldn't have to do this to prove that we have the same value of our colleagues. But that's the system where I come from.
Yeah. We're going to go into our first break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about that and see if you're hopeful that it will ever change to the point where there won't be that bias. Stay with us for a beautiful spot from one of our sponsors, Children's Hospital Philadelphia, and we'll be back with Sylvie Lorente.
We are CHOP, and we can't wait to show you around. We're the nation's first children's hospital. Now, a care network with more than 50 locations that continues to expand. 3 state-of-the-art research buildings with 1.5 million square feet of space. We have grown from 12 beds 165 years ago to nearly 600 beds and one of the best children's hospitals in the world. We have a level 1 trauma center, 11 floors of patient units, more than 20 operating rooms, first of its kind delivery unit for babies with birth defects, a separate cardiac operative and catheterization suite, and places to learn, like our internationally recognized simulation center. We have trained generations of leaders in the field of pediatrics. We are world leaders in medicine, surgery, and science, one of the top recipients in NIH funding for pediatric research. In this building, pioneers in CAR T therapy, mitochondrial disease, brain tumors, hyperinsulinism, and other rare diseases. Here, groundbreaking work in fetal surgery, genetics and genomics, and neurology. In our newest building, leaders in social determinants of health, clinical informatics and epidemiology, autism, trauma and injury prevention. Our patients come from every state and 115 countries. Meeting these challenges requires the best and the brightest. We are passionate about pediatrics. We are motivated to make a difference in the world and in our community. We are a team. We are CHOP.
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch Action News live.
And the big story on Action News.
Plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on. Always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Hi, Hi, and welcome back to the show. I'm joined this week by Sylvie Lorente, and she is the chair professor and dean of research and innovation in the College of Engineering at Villanova University. And just before the break, you had mentioned your daughters. And first, I wanted to know, have either of them followed in your footsteps?
No. Zero interest in becoming a professor. No.
So they saw how hard you had to work. You were working way too hard.
Oh, they worked hard. They work hard also in their own domain, but no, zero interest in becoming professors.
Yeah. When you look at your daughters and the world the way it is today, and you have conversations with them, I'm sure, regarding their work. And are you hopeful that we're moving further and further away from this kind of gender bias? Do you think there's a time when it won't exist?
Oh yes, we're moving away, definitely. It's not happening easily. I would say that I think that we have to be careful and make sure that we remain focused on this. But things are changing. I can see this, and simply because of numbers in engineering, we have more and more female students, and they feel legitimate and they find a job easily, and therefore the new female engineering students can find internship and see that women are there already. So it's really a virtuous circle. There are old habits that need to be changed, and they are kind of difficult to change, but I'm really optimistic. Yes.
And I think we'll see it when our children have their own children and they talk to them about, you're not going to believe back in the day.
Exactly.
This was the problem. Yeah.
Exactly.
Tell me, what is the most exciting thing about the work you do? What really brings you joy? I know you shared with me that really research really is your calling. And I'd love for you to just talk about the most exciting part of that. And then also, how can other women find their own calling?
So, yes, like you said, I really love research. And to me, research is a call. So it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's something that you have those ideas, you have your creativity, and it's with you all the time. But to me, research is also teamwork and education. So among the things that I love is the opportunity to discuss with people from different backgrounds and to work with them. So this interdisciplinarity is really a plus for me. Plus, I love to travel, so I'm traveling all over the world and collaborating with colleagues, which is great. And the relationship that you can build with your students in your group is absolutely unique, because you are empowering them. You see them growing. And you see them really building their own research, and they are so good and so dedicated. It's really wonderful. That it's a very special relationship that the PhD advisor establishes with their graduate students. It's rather you're not a boss, but you're the boss. You're not a parent, but at the same time, you take care of them, because most of them have left their country to come to you and work with you. So there is also this, you feel responsible for them also, even though we are talking about adult people. But when I think of my research group is coming from all over the world. And when I think of all the sacrifices that they made to come here to this country, leaving their family and jumping on a plane and without knowing what to expect on the other side of the ocean, it's really impressive.
Yeah. So when we talk on the show a lot about trying to uncover why we're here, and what is our purpose, what is our calling. It's one of the ultimate questions. And I'm not sure this is true, but I think that those who, like yourself, are very obviously good in one area, so math and science, and allowed you the opportunity to explore different things you could do within that realm. And for young girls and women that perhaps are not, it's sometimes harder to figure out what it is they're meant to be doing. So if I were to ask you, your advice on what kinds of questions can they ask of themselves? How can they explore to determine where it is they're meant to be contributing in the world?
Well, maybe it's not a problem not to know what you want to do, but let's start by eliminating what we do not want to do. And that's a very good start. And let's see what remains, because that's exactly what happened in my case. I was good at math. I was good at science when I was a child. Okay, so where does this lead me? I had no idea. And my family, although being very supportive, had also no idea. So you're just left with this potential skill. Everybody's telling you that this is wonderful, but you have no idea what you are going to do with this. But I didn't have any engineers around me. So you would tell me you could be an engineer. I say, yes, why not? But what is an engineer? So I just didn't know what I wanted to do. But I knew a few things that I did not want for me. And that helps. So yes. If I can give an advice to anyone, it's just start by eliminating what you don't like, what you're sure that you just want to be in the future, and then you will try to find step by step what your way is.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. It's great advice. It's easier than looking at all the possible opportunities. Mm-hmm. We pretty much know what we don't want to do or what we know we're not good at. So that's a good place to start.
Yes, and not all of us are capable of saving the world. I'm collaborating with people at Penn Medicine, and in fact, this morning I spent a little bit of time with one of their transplant surgeons. He is saving lives. He's the one in the operation room replacing a sick liver by a healthy one. We were here with my postdoc just to look at how they are measuring some parameters in the arteries after surgery. But that's fun for us. He's the guy saving lives. But it's okay. I think that each of us has some gift to offer at whatever level, and
yes,
that's
although
enough
I would say, Sylvie, he would not be able to do that work if he didn't have the knowledge and the expertise of scientists like yourself that are always finding new and better ways to do it. So it's so collaborative, right? There's a lot.
Right. You're right.
Very
yes.
collaborative.
This is true.
Yeah. First of all, you've written 7 books, 10 book chapters, 200 peer-reviewed international journal papers. That's an extension of what you do in your role at Villanova. And I wonder, just when do you sleep? And do you find yourself awake at night thinking of new thoughts and ideas and innovations? And, how do you manage your day with all of that on all of those responsibilities?
I have a little notebook by my bedside, and yes, it's true. Sometimes I wake up at night and I write down this idea because I'm pretty sure that I will have forgotten it the day after when I wake up. I don't know. I'm trying to be efficient in the way I work, and I shouldn't say that because I will never have a pay raise if I say it, but I feel like I'm getting paid to have fun. and to play. I'm lucky to be among the people for whom going to work is going to work with a big smile. And I don't have a job; I have a profession, and that makes me happy. And I have lots of other interests outside of my work, but I guess that being a scientist, you always connect what you see in your everyday life to your creativity, and that translates sometimes into a research project.
Do you think that that's a gift, right? To be able to go to work and it's joyful. It doesn't feel like a job. Do you think that helps with your just overall well-being? People who are in jobs that are not bringing them joy are very stressed, and stress can lead to illness and sickness. And, do you think that they're tied together?
I'm definitely convinced about that, but I also know that my job sometimes can be very stressful, with lots of things to manage. But I try to have a good routine. I exercise a lot. I'm lucky to live right in front of a gym, so I just have to cross the street. I have no excuse not to go to take some classes. And yes, exercising is super important, and good food and good wine also.
I like that. French food, by the way, is very delicious and indulgent and yummy. I wanted to share a quote. You said to me in our call, science is absolutely not the answer to everything. Humanities plays a large role. How do they go hand in hand? How would you describe that?
Hand in hand, in an easy way, I'm not that sure, but I think that for those who are what is happening today is the perfect illustration of this need. Artificial intelligence left alone can be an absolutely horrible thing for the entire humanity. You need to add psychology, you need to add philosophy, you need to work with people in social sciences to make sure that under the excuse of innovation, you're not creating more pain than solving problems. I think that the current today's situation is a very good illustration of this. I've been in research panels assessing research proposals in which that dimension of ethics was completely absent. And just because you can do it doesn't mean that you have to do it, like monitoring everything people would say on social media with a very nice objective, which would be to prevent suicide, but it doesn't allow you to to spy on everything that people are saying or writing. So you need to put some guidelines here, and this is why humanities are extremely important. Plus, I think that you cannot teach engineering and science without adding this component in order to develop critical thinking. This is extremely important.
And it's a little unnerving what's coming as far as artificial intelligence and its capability. At the same time, it's incredibly exciting because it can solve a lot of problems. How do you reconcile with where we're going from an innovation standpoint with AI and our need to stay very tied to what is ethical and what is moral and what is right?
I'm afraid I do not have an answer to this question. First of all, it's not my field, so I'm just reading as much as I can and trying to make my own opinion. But I'm definitely convinced that there needs to be decisions made at individual level, but also at societal level, and that's why it's I believe a good idea that politicians and governments start discussing at that level. It's also important, and to have some guidelines, and a lot of them are already in place in Europe, and this is very recent. And I think that the equivalent will happen also in the US. I'm convinced this is going to happen.
I wanted to ask you, what are you doing when you become inspired? Where do you go for inspiration, particularly when you're thinking about perhaps your next book or just your leadership style in the classroom for engaging with students? Where are you and what are you doing when you get that inspiration?
In fact, I'm coming up with ideas quite often in airplanes, probably because you're stuck in this place and you have nothing else to do than either watch a movie or work a little bit or think. But I came up with quite a bit of good ideas and creative ones flying.
When you're flying, you're looking out over the world.
Yeah, well, figuratively speaking, yes, exactly. But that's when it's happening, I would say, yes.
Do you go back home frequently? How often do you go back to?
I travel back and forth quite often, especially because 1 year ago I was selected to join the European Research Council, and we are a group of 22 scientists working on the development and improvement of science in Europe, and with a lot of funding, and deciding how this funding should be distributed throughout researchers all over Europe. So that makes me travel on a very regular basis, and so that gives me the opportunity to with a quick flight to go to see my daughters or my parents who are still in the tiny village where my family has been living for more than 100 years now. So
traveling is very stressful these days, and you're doing that on a regular basis. Tell me what when you're feeling stressed, when things go awry, do you have a mantra or something that you live by that you say to yourself that just kind of grounds you? And
no. At some point, and I don't know why, because I cannot remember any specific incident, but at some point while I was traveling so much, I started to be scared every time the plane would have met some turbulences, mm-hmm. and that's difficult to handle. The only thing I could find to calm down was this way of breathing that you learned at the time when you would give birth. That's that deep breathing. So that was the most efficient way for me to calm down when I went through those episodes.
It's actually it's funny. I've had, numerous guests on the show that are wellness experts, and the simple act of breathing they talk about over and over, because I think the way we live in society, so working so hard, moving fast, doing so much, we're not really breathing the way we should. And if you take that time to do it, I'll say with the flow, right?
Exactly. The breathing in, breathing out, flowing through your lungs. Exactly.
Yes, it's amazing how calming that can be. We're out of time. Sylvie, I thank you so much for being on the show. I loved hearing your story and the great work that you're doing. It's really fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to chat with you. It's been really a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Stay with us for a spot from one of our sponsors, Penn Community Bank, and I will be back.
From Philadelphia to the Lehigh Valley and everywhere in between. For 150 years, Penn Community Bank has been a part of your neighborhood. Helping businesses start, supporting families as they grow, and staying connected to the people and places that make this region special. It's who we are and where we're from. Penn Community Bank. Here we are, and here we grow.
Do you stream on a Roku, a Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app. Watch action news live.
And the big story on Action News.
Plus special programming, breaking news, and severe weather updates.
Tremendous amounts of rain.
Always on. Always the news team you trust. Watch 6ABC 24/7 on your streaming device. Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
That's it, everyone, for another week of Women to Watch. Thanks so much for being with me. Stay tuned for my interview next week with Erin McNamara, and she's the Dean of Education at Drexel University. Thank you to Helm Creative for producing the show and to all of our Watch team members and corporate partners. Have a great week, everyone.
We are CHOP, and we can't wait to show you around. We're the nation's first children's hospital. Now, a care network with more than 50 locations that continues to expand. 3 state-of-the-art research buildings with 1.5 million square feet of space. We have grown from 12 beds 165 years ago to nearly 600 beds and one of the best children's hospitals in the world. We have a level 1 trauma center, 11 floors of patient units, more than 20 operating rooms, first of its kind delivery unit for babies with birth defects, a separate cardiac operative and catheterization suite, and places to learn, like our internationally recognized simulation center. We have trained generations of leaders in the field of pediatrics. We are world leaders in medicine, surgery, and science. One of the top recipients in NIH funding for pediatric research. In this building, pioneers in CAR T therapy, mitochondrial disease, brain tumors, hyperinsulinism, and other rare diseases. Here, groundbreaking work in fetal surgery, genetics and genomics, and neurology. In our newest building, leaders in social determinants of health, clinical informatics and epidemiology, autism, trauma and injury prevention. Our patients come from every state and 115 countries. Meeting these challenges requires the best and the brightest. We are passionate about pediatrics. We are motivated to make a difference in the world and in our community. We are a team. We are CHOP.